Hi, this is Ibarionex from the Candid Frame. And one of the things that's really wonderful about photographing on the street and being a street photographer is sort of the unexpected things that you see and that you're able to photograph as a result. There are a lot of odd things that happen out in the world when we're out in public, and sometimes you just sort of give it the side eye and we kind of are a little bit bemused, and then we go on, with our business. But when you have a camera in your hand, you're able to make a photograph of it and sort of immortalize it in a way. And that's one of the big reasons I think it's important to always have a camera with you, even if it's just your camera phone. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today with the images that I've selected. It's just the odd things that happen and why it's so important to not only have a camera with you, but to always be open to the unexpected. Here's an image by Karl Edwards. We have no XF information here. Now, we see plenty of people walking their dogs, right? I mean, I see a lot down here in Los Angeles, and sometimes I'll make the occasional photograph of a person with his dog. But, I haven't seen a person walking their dog in this particular way. And this just sort of the absurdity of him carrying his dog in this way is amusing enough. But what Karl does here is that he doesn't, lose sight of all the other things that make for an interesting photograph. First off, it's just the wonderful color of the light. It has some warm light. It's either early morning or late afternoon, and the light that's hitting this man and his dog is just beautiful, throwing the rest of the scene into shadow. But that light also makes the colors pop, and it really emphasizes the color contrast, which is another key element in this shot. The color contrast between the purple shirt and the golden hues of the dog's fur. Both of those things, the color contrast, the light, just the sharpness of the subject helps to lead the viewer's eye directly to the pair as they're walking down the street. Now it looks like he may have darkened the rest of the scene a little bit in Photoshop or in Lightroom, but that just accentuates even more the contrast between the pair as they're illuminated by the sunlight and the area that's relegated to shadow. One of the interesting elements within this shot is that arrow on that pole that's sort of leaning to their immediate left. It adds a really interesting element to the shot. It isn't distracting for me. It actually sort of complements it and creates a nice sense of balance in the shot, because otherwise this area here would have been relegated to a large area of negative space where there's nothing that's really sort of happening. And this shot, even though it's so heavily weighted for this subject here and the dog, this element here, including this woman walking down the sidewalk, helps to minimize the overabundance of negative space, which can imbalance a composition in a photograph. And sometimes these things are very small, but it really helps. And there's also some really nice things that are happening with color, even though they aren't particularly emphasized here. Sometimes I like mirroring of different elements, and in this case, it's sort of the color. And though it's very muted, there is a yellow fire hydrant here, and what looks to be sort of a yellow purse, and then what looks to be a fluorescent lighting, all that sort of mirrors the color of the dog. It may be a small thing, but for me, it makes a difference to have small elements like this that help to complement or contrast the main subject. But having a camera ready and seeing the subject and being ready with a camera is one of the reasons why Karl was able to make this shot and get it sharp, get it well exposed, and just produce a really nicely composed photograph. Here we have another person walking. But in this case, they're not walking a dog. They're trying to just maintain control of this little girl who's at the end of a leash. Now, we've seen, like I said before, it's plenty of people with a leash leading a dog. But here we have a girl leading her mother as they're walking down the street. And the body language here of this little girl here is just amazing. And the tension that it creates on that leash, on that lead. And then how her mother is just so absorbed with her phone as she's walking down the street. The contrast between the two is just absolutely amazing. And it's really, really funny. And I like the tension that's created because of that contrast. It's not just the fact that the little girl's on this leash. It's just the contrast between the body language, each sort of pulling away from each other in a way, and just the energy. The girl just overabundant energy, and then the mom sort of more passive and more serene as she's just holding on to this line and texting or reading emails on her phone. It's just it's a shot where that really demonstrates how important gesture and body language can be to a shot, because we have a lot of elements in the background. We have the bikes, we have the poles, we have this tent in the upper right hand corner, we have this pole here in the foreground, and a lot of times things like this can ruin a picture because they're so distracting. These are the kinds of elements that you kind of want to eliminate from a typical frame when you want to just emphasize the subject and sort of minimize the potential distractions that may intrude in the frame. But here there wasn't much opportunity to be able to control much of that beyond simply being able to use maybe a moderate to a wide aperture. But it looks to me here that he was using a wide angle lens, so even if you were shooting at f4, it would be difficult to sort of blur the background sufficiently. And suffice it to say that even with all those elements in the background that typically might be distracting, the strength of the gesture, the strength of the body language of these two characters sort of elevates the image beyond what you typically would consider problematic in terms of a photograph. And it's your eyes just gravitate to these two figures because of the oddity of their situation. So while technically it may not be the cleanest frame that you've ever seen, it's still an effective frame. And in this sort of, it reminds me that not all pictures need to be perfect in order to be great. And sometimes I can lose sight of that because I'm looking at pictures and I'm thinking, or I'm looking at scenes and I'm thinking, oh, I wish this wasn't there, or I wish that wasn't there. And sometimes I'm making a conscious choice to somehow eliminate it, either by changing my camera position, my focal length, or something in order to eliminate those distractions. But there are times where, like this, where you just have to accept everything that's in the frame and just capture the moment and make the shot, because I think that this shot is just a wonderful, wonderful photograph. And again, it's one of those moments that are incredibly fleeting, and you can be caught completely off guard to the point that you even forget to raise your camera to your eye. But that's why it's always important to be aware and present when you're out there with the camera. I don't listen to music on headphones. I don't look for other distractions when I'm out in the street. I'm really just out there trying to be in the moment, because when a moment like this presents itself, you want to be ready. And lastly, we have this shot by Vitor Damasio. This was shot with a Fuji XE1, shot at 1/500th of a second at f13 ISO 400. Now, this shot is not as action oriented as the previous two images where we see people doing something. This is more sort of a street scene, a still life. There is the hint of a human presence because of the back door from the truck being open and this thing sort of waiting to be placed into the truck, or having been pulled out of a truck by someone who we're not seeing in the frame. So the human presence is still felt in this shot, but it's all these elements in the frame and sort of the odd nature of this toy horse just sitting there alone on the street. You're kind of wondering, what is that thing doing there? You fully expect a car to be on the street. You fully expect, all these things that we always see on a city street to be there. You don't expect this toy horse to be there. And so that's the oddity here. And you're just kind of going, huh? But what makes the shot really, really good is not just the presence of the horse. It's everything else in the shot, especially light and color. The light really helps to make these colors pop, especially the repeating red of the saddle of the horse, this red in the upper right-hand corner, the red of the taillight, the colors that are created up here on the wall, which is sort of a off faded lime green, And then we have the shadows, especially the shadows of this street sign here on the wall, the shadow of the horse here on the ground. It creates just great contrast. We have this pattern that's happening throughout the frame. We have the pattern here of these small circles, the pattern against the wall. It's really a remarkable little frame. And it's sort of a nothing moment, right? I mean, we're walking around the street and we're sometimes hunting for interesting people, a character, or just a real dramatic moment. And sometimes there are nothing moments just like this that are odd just because they exist at that particular moment in time. And just the weirdness of like, huh? What's going on here? And I like moments like this where you look at a scene and you're just trying to figure it out. What's happening here? And it's, probably nothing more complicated than the fact that someone is loading or unloading a car. But you probably looked at this image and reacted in much the same way that I did. We were like, huh? And then we just enjoy it for all the reasons that I just described, in terms of color, in terms of contrast, in terms of pattern, in terms of composition. It's just a wonderful moment. And I love this kind of odd stuff. And the world is rich with it. And if we step out, today and go out and just walk the streets whatever city or town you are, you're likely to encounter one of these things at least once a day. And when you're hunting for them, when you're open to them, probably is a better way of saying it, you'll see these things more and more, and it will create great fodder for you as a photographer. So I hope you liked this video. I really enjoyed looking for images to talk about this today. I love these kinds of photographs. But, if you want to contribute to the Candid Frame Flickr pool, all you have to do is go to Flickr, do a search on the Candid Frame, and just ask to be added. We're constantly adding new people every week, and they're contributing thousands of photographs each month. And some of the work is just really amazing. And I hope that a lot of you are taking a look at some of the work that other listeners are submitting to the group and really drawing some great inspiration from it. And if you've never heard of the Candid Frame before, it is a podcast which features conversations with some of the world's best established and emerging photographers. And you can check it out by going to thecandidframe.com. This week we had an interview with the South African portrait photographer Ursula Tosig, who started off as a wedding photographer, but after a stroke in 2012 that left her partially paralyzed, she transitioned into becoming a portrait photographer. It's a really inspiring story and just speaks to the tenacity of one woman who just would not give up on her dream to have a career as a photographer, even as her body failed her in a very dramatic way. You can check it out on the YouTube channel. We upload the episodes there, but you can also just download the Candid Frame app, and that's available for Apple iOS, Windows, and Android. And you can download those by just going to the website, and I have links for all three apps right here. So you can just click on them, download them, and you'll have access to the entire archive of interviews. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you like what you're seeing here on our YouTube channel, please subscribe and don't forget to spread the word. So thanks a lot for listening and for your support, and I'll see you next time.